Hey, in this class we're going to look at the product and quotient rule for derivatives. What those are is, you can probably tell, but the product rule is for multiplication and the quotient rule is for division. And you would use these if two functions are being multiplied or two functions are being divided by each other and you want to find the derivative of the final thing. So for example, if you had f of x being multiplied by g of x, so two functions, and you wanted to find the derivative of the entire thing, so all this with derivative with respect to x, you would get that this is equal to f prime of x times g of x plus g prime of x times f of x. This might seem pretty easy because it is, and we're going to look at a few examples later on, but you kind of have to memorize this, and there's no other way around it since you need it to find any derivative that we would be looking at. But yeah, so you have to memorize this. It might be a bit of a bummer, but yeah, it might just take a bit of practice, probably like 10 questions being solved using it until you get it down, but take as much time as you need to memorize it. So that's the product rule. I'll just write here product. For the quotient rule, it is kind of the exact, it's pretty similar, but if you have two functions being divided by each other, so f of x over g of x, and you wanted to find the derivative of the entire thing, so derivative with respect to x of that, this would be f prime of x times g of x minus g prime of x times f of x all over g of x squared. So once again, this is probably even more difficult than the product rule because there are more things to memorize and it's a bit longer as well, but you kind of have to because there's no other way around it. A quick abbreviation that actually does help, I've seen a lot of people use it myself, is low d high minus high d low. If you look at the fraction as low and high, so like numerator and denominator, top and bottom, and then you say, okay, so we're going to multiply the low times the derivative of the high, so multiply the denominator by the derivative of the numerator, and then minus high, so the top, times the derivative of the bottom, d low, derivative of low, so g prime. So that's how you get, I guess, the top. It's a very good abbreviation. I've seen a lot of people use it myself, like I said, but if it doesn't work for you, then you don't have to use it, but it's good because it might help. And the denominator is always g of x squared. But yeah, once again, try to memorize it in any way possible, whatever works for you, but you have to get them down and you have to memorize them to be able to solve any of the questions we're going to see in the next few slides. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the explanation. Let's actually kind of start solving problems now. Okay, so first question, we have two functions being multiplied together. At first, these might not seem like functions, but basically, when we say functions, we just mean that you're multiplying two things that have x's together. So there's two ways of doing this. There's either the product rule, which we're going to do first, but then there's another shortcut which only works if the numbers are kind of small, but I'll show you that too. So first, we know that the derivative of f of x times g of x, if you want to find the derivative of the entire thing, this is going to be f prime of x times g of x plus g prime of x times f of x. But yeah, once again, memorize this because there's no other way around it. But yeah, so from here, let's call the first one f of x. Let's call the second one g of x. For multiplication, it doesn't really matter what you call f and g, but for the quotient rule, it does matter because the denominator has to be g and the numerator has to be f, but we'll get to that later as well. But yeah, so for now, we call this f, we call it g. Once again, for products, it does not matter. But yeah, so first, let's write down everything on the side here as kind of like notes so that when we need something, we have it and we use it. So first we have f of x is equal to 4x, that's given. We know that from the question. G of x is also x plus 7. Once again, that's given from the question. I didn't do anything yet. But now let's also find the derivatives. So let's find both f prime of x and g prime of x, only because we're actually going to use them at some point. So when we use them, it's always good to kind of like plug them in on the spot and not plug them in and also then get confused to find the derivative later. So it's always good to find everything you need first, So when you actually use them, it's only basic math and basic multiplication. It's not other stuff combined. So yeah, for this, the derivative of 4x, so x has a power of 1. 1 times 4 is 4. And then decrease the exponent of x by 1. So you get x to the power of 0, which is just 4. 4 times 1 is 4. And then for this, x plus 7, the derivative of x. So right now this is 1x. So 1 times 1 is 1. And then derivative of any constant is 0. So 1 plus 0, or in other words, this is just 1. So once again, the derivative of f of x is 4. Derivative of g of x is 1. And that's it. Now we can actually use them to plug them in here. But yeah, so we already found, once again, I'm just going to write it down here. So f prime of x, we already found that. So this is 4. G of x we already have. It's over here. So this is x plus 7. G prime of x we just found as well. It's 1. So plus 1 times f of x is 4. So 4x. And then from here, this is the easiest step that you can ever do. But basically just multiply and simplify. So 4 times x, 4x. I'm going to do this in some other color actually. But yeah, so 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 7 is 28. Plus 1 times 4x is just 4x. And then combine 4x and 4x together, we get that the answer is equal to 8x plus 28. And we are done. It is that easy. So a quick summary and a quick recap. Memorize the formula. And once you write it down, find everything that you need to actually solve any question. And then after that, just multiply. It's that simple. So yeah, this is the final answer and we're done. Okay, so we finished the first way. For the second way of attempting this question, instead of treating this as a product rule, we could have expanded first and then just found the derivative of that. So if you actually try this, so 4x times x plus 7. So if you try this out, 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times 7 is plus 28x. After that, all you have to do now is just find the derivative with respect to x of this. So that's always another option that you can do, but the problem with this is that if you have big numbers and there's a lot of kind of multiplication involved, then this is going to actually be harder. So yeah, it just kind of depends on what the question is, but you can always try it if you get stuck somewhere. But yeah, so the derivative of this is super easy. This would be 4 times 2, which is 8, and then x to the power of 2 would become x to the power of 1. 28x would become plus 28, since this has a power of 1, and 1 times 28 is 28, and then x goes away because it would have a power of 0. And yeah, as you can tell, these are the exact same answers because they are both correct. So you can choose whatever way you want to solve this, but yeah, it just kind of depends on the question, because sometimes this is easier, but sometimes this is easier. So it just depends. You can always try both though. But yeah, moving on to the next question. Okay, question number 2. This time we have two functions again being multiplied together. So we already know that this is the quotient rule. And like we said before, it doesn't really matter what you call f of x and g of x, but I call them this way just because it doesn't really matter, but I just chose it this way. So yeah, first one is f of x, second one is g of x. Let's also write down the formula, because since we know it's a product rule, let's write down the formula now so we know what we need. So if we have f of x times g of x, and we want to find the derivative of the entire thing, this would be equal to f prime of x times g of x plus g prime of x times f of x. And now, so if you look at this, you would see that we need 4 things. We need f prime of x, g of x, and then g prime of x, and f of x. So let's kind of write all 4 of them on the side. So first off, we know that f of x is already 4. So f of x is 4x squared plus 2x. We already know that. And then g of x is 2x plus 3x squared. We also know that as well. So once again, these two, the way you get them is just look at the question and copy down what you see. And now, so now we actually have to calculate stuff. So f prime of x, what is the derivative of 4x squared first? So 2 times 4 is 8. And then since the exponent of x right now is 2, decrease that by 1 and you get an exponent of 1. So x to the power of 1, which is just x. And then for the next term, we have x to the power of 1 here. So 1 times 2 is 2. And then since the power right now is 1, if you decrease that by 1, you get a power of 0. So x to the power of 0. But x to the power of 0 is also 1, so that goes away. So x power of 0 is nothing. We don't even need to write that down. So that's f prime of x. We're done. For g prime of x, let's do pretty much the exact same thing. So we have 2x again. So same thing. This is the power of 1. 1 times 2 is 2. And then since x has a power of 1 right now, it's going to decrease by 1, and we're going to have x to the power of 0, which is just 2 times 1, which is just 2. So x to the power of 0 goes away. And then for the next term, 2 times 3 is 6, so plus 6. And then since the exponent on the x is 2, it decreases to become a 1, and we have x to the power of 1, or just x. So 2 plus 6x is the final answer for this, and 8x plus 2 is the final answer for this. But yeah, now let's actually plug everything in. This is the easiest part from here, but it also is the part that people make the most mistakes on because they start to lose focus. So, but yeah, since it's the easiest part, it doesn't mean that you can make wrong answers. But yeah, so f prime of x, we know that this is 8x plus 2. And then g prime of x, we know that this is 2x plus 3x squared. 2x plus 3x squared. And then g prime of x, this is 2 plus 6x. I'm going to write plus 2 plus 6x. And then that multiplied by f of x, which is 4x squared plus 2x. But yeah, you can already tell that in the first question, the one before this, the multiplication was kind of easy. This time it is a bit more difficult because all of them need work, like need actual work. They're not as easy as the other one. But yeah, so first 8x times 2x, that is 16x squared. 8x times 3x squared, that is plus 24x cubed. And then 2 times 2x is plus 4x. And then 2 times 3x squared is plus 6x squared. So we're done those two brackets. And then plus 2 times 4x squared is 8x squared. And then 2 times 2x is plus 4x once again. And then 6x times 4x squared, I'm going to write plus, so 6 times 4 is 24. I'm going to erase this green line, make it a tiny bit shorter like this. But yeah, so 6x, I'm going to do this again actually. So 6x times 4x squared, 6 times 4 is 24. X times x squared is x cubed. And then last one, 6x times 2x, so 6 times 2 is 12. And then x times x is x squared. And we're done with that. So now all we have to do now is just combine everything. So we have an x cubed here. We have an x cubed here as well. So 24 and 24, if you add them up, they give you 48. So we have 48x cubed. And then for the x squares, we have an 16x squared here. We have a 6, we have an 8, and we have a 12. So 16 plus 6 is 22, plus 8 is 30, plus 12 is 42. So plus 42x squared. And then we have the x's, the easiest ones. So 4x plus 4x, that is 8x. And we are done. This is our final answer for the derivative of this bigger function. But yeah, and if you kind of think back to the limit definition that we learned before, doing this would have actually, it would have taken pages and pages of writing and work to even get an answer that's close to this, and the probability of you making a mistake would have been super high. So you can probably already see that all these rules and shortcuts, they are nice and useful because you don't have to do a lot of work for something that can be done in about 5 lines of work. So yeah, but we are done, and this is the final answer. Okay, question number 3. This time we have a fraction. So we already know this is going to be the quotient rule. Let's call this one f of x, and let's call the bottom one g of x. For division or quotient rules, this has to be the case. If you flip them around, you're going to get a wrong answer because for the product rule, if you multiply two things together, it doesn't matter if you flip them around. But for division, if you are dividing two things together, it does matter if you flip them around. You're going to get two different things. So once again, the top has to be f of x, and the bottom has to be g of x. There is no other way around it. But yeah, okay, so now let's actually write down the rule that we learned. So if you're trying to find the derivative with respect to x of f of x divided by g of x, this is going to be equal to f prime of x times g of x minus g prime of x times f of x all over g of x squared. So yeah, this one is a lot harder because there's a lot of things to do this time. But yeah, let's actually try solve this. So once again, on the side, I'm going to write down everything that I want. But yeah, so first we need f of x and we need f prime of x. So let's write both of those down. So f of x is equal to 3x to the power 4 plus 2x. Once again, I just got that from the question because we know that the top or the numerator is f of x. So that's that. For f prime of x, what we can do is first write that down and then take the derivative of the top. So this would be 4 times 3, which is 12, and then x to the power of 4 will become x to the power of 3. And then 2x, this will become 2, because this has a power of 1. 2 times 1 is 2, and then x goes away because it will become to the power of 0. So this is what we have for f prime of x. For g of x, this is from the question again. This would be equal to 4x squared plus 2. And then for g prime of x, this is a tiny bit difficult, or actually pretty easy, but 2 times 4 is 8. X to the power of 2, decrease the exponent by 1, you get x to the power of 1, which is just x. And then the derivative of any constant is 0, so that goes away. So this is the derivative of g of x. And now we have everything we need to solve this equation or this expression. But yeah, so let's first plug in f prime of x, that is equal to 12x cubed plus 2, and multiply that by g of x. G of x, as we know, is 4x squared plus 2. So multiply that by 4x squared plus 2, and then minus g prime of x is 8x, so minus 8x times, and then f of x is 3x to the power 4 plus 2x. And that's the numerator. For the denominator, this is a tiny bit difficult, but you just square g of x. So this would be 4x squared plus 2 all squared. Okay, now that we have this expression over here, and we have everything we need in it, let's actually find how much it is and what the final answer is. But just to keep it in mind, this is the point where people make a lot of mistakes because it's a lot of multiplication and it's kind of repetitive. It might be easy, but it's long, so just take your time. But yeah, so first off, we have 12x cubed times 4x squared. So 12 times 4 is 48. Then x cubed times x to the power of 2 is x to the power of 5. 12x cubed plus times 2 is plus 24x cubed. And then 2 times 4x squared, this is going to be, so plus 8x squared. Then 2 times 2 is 4. So plus 4. I'm going to write that down. So yeah, plus 4. And then all of this minus. So when you subtract, you're subtracting the entire thing. So just put a bracket so that you don't forget that you're subtracting every term that you're going to write down. But yeah, so a bracket's always nice because it kind of eliminates that. But yeah, so 8x times 3x to the power of 4. 8 times 3 is 24. X times x to the power of 4 is x to the power of 5. And then plus 8x times 2x. So 8 times 2 is 16. X times x is x squared. I'm going to close the bracket. And then the denominator, this, you might have to do this on the side, but I'm going to just write the answer for it. So 4x squared would be 16x to the power of 4, and then plus 8 times 2 would be 16x squared, and then plus 4. Once again, this might be a bit difficult to kind of understand what I did, but if you have trouble, just do it on the side and you should get the same answer. But yeah, after this, let's actually start simplifying stuff out. So we would have 48x to the power of 5 plus 24x to the power of 3 plus 8x squared plus 4 minus 24x to the power of 5 and then minus 16x squared, because the minus distributes to every term. And then the denominator stays the same, so 16x to the power of 4 plus 16x squared plus 4. And now we are almost done. So we have an x to the power of 5 here, we have an x to the power of 5 here. So 48 minus 24 is 24x to the power of 5. And then we have only one x to the power of 3, so let's write that down. So plus 24x cubed. And then we have one x to the power of 2 here, and then another one here. So 8 minus 16 is negative 8x squared. And then we only have this left, which is plus 4. And then all this is over the same thing, 16x to the power of 4 plus 16x squared plus 4. This is a very valid answer. but you can actually simplify this one more step because you can divide every term by 4. So 24 divided by 4 is 6. Let's write that down. So this would be 6x to the power of 5, and then 6x to the power of 3, and then negative 2x to the power of 2, and then plus 1, all over 16 divided by 4 is 4x to the power of 4, then 16 divided by 4 is 4 again, so plus 4x squared, and then 4 divided by 4 is 1. So yeah, this should be a final answer, and this is the derivative of this bigger question over here. So we are done. Okay, so for the final question over here, there's actually 2 ways of solving this, just like the first question. The first way is to kind of use the longer, more complicated method of finding the product rule of the numerator, and then whatever answer we get, you would have that over 3x plus 4. This is completely valid, but it is a lot harder because the product rule is always kind of long, and we can tell right now that if you just multiply, so let's actually multiply 4x times 3x plus 2. If you do this and get an answer, this would actually be a lot easier than finding the product rule and then using the quotient rule after that to find the final answer. So that's a lot of steps. But yeah, always try to use the least amount of steps that you can use. But yeah, so this would be equal to 4x times 3x, 4 times 3 is 12, and then x times x is x squared. And then 4 times 2 is 8, and then x, because we have an x there. So this would be our new numerator. But yeah, always look for this before starting the product rule, because if you start the product rule, it's kind of hard to track or like backtrack because you kind of feel bad that you already started. But yeah, so always look before you start because it would save you time. And now, so our new question, we can write this down as d over dx as 12x squared plus 8x all over 3x plus 4. So now, after doing all this, it only looks like a quotient rule, which is good. We want that. So now let's actually solve this again. So for the quotient rule, I'm going to write it here. If you have the derivative with respect to x of f of x over g of x, this would be f prime of x times g of x minus g prime of x times f of x all over g of x all squared. So that's that. And then, yeah, from here, let's find everything we need. I'm going to draw this line again. So we need f prime of x, and we need f of x. We have f of x. F of x is the numerator over here. This is f of x. This is g of x. But yeah, so f of x is equal to 12x squared plus 8x. And then f prime of x, we also can get that pretty easily. But this is 2 times 12 is 24. The exponent on the x decreases by 1, so you have x to the power of 1 or just x. So plus, and then 8x becomes an 8 because that is the derivative of 8x. And then, so let's kind of handle the g's now. So we have g of x as 3x plus 4. So g prime of x is super easy. This would be 3x over here. I mean 3, not 3x. Yeah, so the derivative of this is 3. And then the derivative of a constant is 0. So plus 0, which is just 3. So we're done that. And now let's actually plug everything in like we did the last question. So I'm going to erase this line again just so that we don't run out of space. Okay, so f prime of x, we need that first. This is 24x plus 8. So let's write that down. 24x plus 8 multiplied by g of x. G of x is 3x plus 4. So let's write that down. 3x plus 4. And then minus, let's put a bracket again. G prime of x, which is just 3. So let's put a 3 multiplied by f of x, which is 12x squared plus 8x. So 12x squared plus 8x. So we're done the numerator, and the denominator would be g of x squared. So it would be 3x plus 4 all squared. Only step we have to do now is to actually solve this and find out how much it is. So all this would be equal to 24x times 3x. 24 times 3 is 60 plus 12, so 72. And then x times x is x squared. 24x times 4, this is going to be 80 plus 16, so 96. And then we have an x here, so 96x. I'm doing this in my head, but you can do it on calculator, I think, because you should be able to use calculators at this point. But if you can't use a calculator, then do it on the side using long multiplication. But yeah, so 24x times 4 is 96x. And then 8 times 3 is 24, so plus 24x. And then 8 times 4, it's pretty simple again, so plus 32. And then minus, inside the bracket, 3 times 12 is 36, so 36x squared. And then 3 times 8, this would be plus 24x. And then the denominator, if you actually square this, you should get 9x squared plus 24x plus 16. Once again, if you can't see this, you can just do it on the side and get the answer very quickly. But yeah, after that, let's start simplifying a bit more. So this would be 72x squared plus 96x plus 24x plus 32 minus 36x squared, and then minus 24x, all over 9x squared plus 24x plus 16. We can see some things simplify, so 24x and negative 24x go away, and then we have 72x squared here and negative 36x squared here. Let's write that down. So 72 minus 36 is 36, so 36x squared. And then we only have one 96x left, so let's write that down, plus 96x, and then plus 32. All over 9x squared plus 24x plus 16, and we are done. This should be a final answer, so we can stop here. But yeah, once again, we just found out what the derivative is for this question on top using only the quotient rule. I'll summarize the longer, complicated step again, but the other way you could have done this is finding out what 4x and 3x plus 2 is using the product rule. So find out what that is as a product rule, and then whatever answer you get, that would be over 3x plus 4, which is once again a lot more difficult, so I don't advise that you use it, but you can if you want, and you can also try this and see that the answers match up. But yeah, so that's it, and we are done.